You know, it's crazy. We spend so much of our lives trying to be heard, to make someone notice us, appreciate us, validate us. We talk, we give, we show up, and we pour out our energy like it's endless. And yet, sometimes the moment someone finally hears us is when we stop speaking, when we finally go silent. You see, your presence, your energy, your time, your attention, it's not something people are automatically entitled to. It's a gift. Every time you show up for someone, every time you listen, every time you care enough to give a piece of yourself, you are offering something rare. But here's the thing, when a gift is always available, people stop treating it like a gift. They start treating it like a given. And that's when the slow erosion begins, not of love, not of effort, but of appreciation. We live in a world where consistency is invisible. You can be there for someone every single day, and after a while, they stop noticing. It becomes background noise, like the hum of electricity in a room, always there, never acknowledged. You answer their calls. You help them through storms, you listen to their chaos, and somehow it becomes expected. Not celebrated, not valued, just normal. But let me tell you something, there's nothing normal about loyalty or about the kind of presence that holds others steady when they would otherwise fall apart. That's not ordinary, that's extraordinary. The problem is, people often don't see the power of your presence until it's gone. And when that silence arrives, when your energy steps out of the room, the world shifts. Suddenly, they hear the echo of what they took for granted. They feel the absence of your laughter, your warmth, your check-ins, your "Are you okay?" messages. They start to realize that what they thought was constant wasn't guaranteed. It was a choice you made again and again. And maybe you've been there. Maybe you've been that person who keeps giving, hoping that one day they'll see it, hoping that your consistency will be enough for them to appreciate it. But here's a truth that's hard to swallow. The more you give without boundaries, the less people recognize your value. Because when something is always available, people assume it always will be. That's why you have to protect your presence. Not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. You have to remind yourself that your time, your attention, your energy, they are sacred resources. You decide where they go. You decide who earns them. When you treat your presence as precious, others start to see it that way too. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back, not to punish anyone, but to remind them and yourself that your light isn't something they can stand under forever without gratitude. Because the truth is, your absence often teaches louder lessons than your presence ever could. When the conversations go quiet, when your support disappears, when the silence settles in, that's when people start asking, where did they go? And in that moment, they begin to understand the weight of what you were giving all along. But here's the most important part. Your worth was never dependent on whether or not they noticed. You don't lose value because someone failed to see it. You don't become less because someone couldn't appreciate you more. Your presence has power, whether it's recognized or not. And once you realize that, once you really own that truth, you stop needing to be noticed. You start being intentional, because the real shift happens not when they notice your absence, but when you notice your worth. When you stop showing up out of habit and start showing up out of choice. When your presence is no longer a plea for recognition, but a reflection of your strength. And that's the moment everything changes. When silence is no longer something you give to teach them a lesson, but something you embrace to protect your peace. Silence has a way of revealing truth. Not just about others, but about you. When you stop talking, stop explaining, stop justifying your worth, something profound happens. You start to see, you start to recognize who was truly listening all along and who was only tuned into the noise. Silence strips away the illusions that words often protect. Because let's be honest, sometimes we talk not to communicate, but to convince. We repeat ourselves to people who never intended to understand us. We defend ourselves in conversations that were never meant to be fair. And when we finally get tired enough, when the noise becomes too heavy to carry, we fall into silence. That's when the truth finally steps forward. Silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the moment you decide your energy doesn't have to fight to be recognized. You realize that your peace is louder than their misunderstanding. You stop chasing clarity from people who are committed to confusion. And instead of forcing your value into their awareness, you let your absence show it. Silence becomes your statement, not because you've given up, but because you've grown up. See, when you're constantly explaining yourself, people stop listening to your heart and start focusing on your words. They analyze, they twist, they interpret, but they don't hear. Silence, though silence leaves space for reflection. It's a mirror. It forces people to sit with what's left unsaid. And in that stillness, they start to feel the weight of what they've lost. That's the power of quiet. It doesn't beg for attention, it demands recognition through absence. But silence also tells you the truth. It shows you who reaches out when the noise stops. It shows you who notices when your energy is no longer there to fill the gaps. You begin to see relationships for what they really are, not what you hoped they could be. The ones who cared for your company only when it was convenient, they vanish. The ones who valued your voice because of what it gave them, not who you are, they fade too. And what remains is pure, people who are drawn not by what you can offer, but by who you are in your quietest moments. There's something powerful in that realization. You no longer fear silence. You start to embrace it. You understand that silence isn't the absence of communication. It's a higher form of it. It's your soul saying, I'm done performing for understanding that will never come. And from that place, You reclaim your boundaries. You stop chasing closure in conversations that never honored your truth. You stop over-explaining to people who decided long ago not to listen. When you live in alignment with that, you radiate a new kind of calm. People start to notice, not because you're loud, but because your peace feels different. They can sense it. Your silence carries a message that words never could. I no longer need you to see my worth for it to exist. And that's the turning point, because when you no longer need validation, you start attracting authenticity. Attention and appreciation, two words that seem similar but couldn't be more different. Attention is fleeting. It's a spark, a glance, a momentary recognition that disappears as quickly as it came. Appreciation, on the other hand, is deeper. It's presence with gratitude. It's seeing not just what someone does, but who they are. And the sad truth is, most people confuse one for the other. They chase attention thinking it will make them feel valued, when what they're really craving is appreciation. We live in a world obsessed with visibility. Everyone wants to be seen, to be noticed, to be acknowledged. But being noticed and being valued are not the same thing. People notice what's loud, what's new, what's dramatic. They don't always notice what's consistent, what's loyal, what's steady. You could be the one showing up quietly day after day, holding things together behind the scenes, and still be overlooked. Because attention thrives on noise, and appreciation requires awareness. And here's the hard lesson. Some people won't realize the depth of what you brought into their lives until that depth is gone. They were so used to your reliability that it became invisible. They were so accustomed to your kindness that it felt ordinary. You became the rhythm they lived by, and they never stopped to notice the music. But when that rhythm stops, when the conversations go unanswered, when the laughter fades, when the silence replaces your steady presence, that's when they start to feel the emptiness. That's when they realize that attention was never enough and appreciation should have come sooner. You see, attention feeds the ego, but appreciation feeds the soul. One is about being seen, the other is about being valued. And when you start recognizing that difference, you stop begging for attention. You start holding out for appreciation. You stop chasing those who look at you and start aligning with those who see you. Because the truth is, you can get attention from anyone, but appreciation, real, heartfelt gratitude that comes from people who understand your worth without you having to prove it. And when you begin to live from that place, your energy shifts. You no longer perform for validation. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to be noticed. You realize that your quiet, steady, authentic self is more powerful than any moment of superficial spotlight. The people who truly value you don't just clap when you shine, they stand with you when you dim. They don't need reminders of your worth. They already feel it. So don't confuse the noise of attention for the music of appreciation. Attention fades when the show ends. Appreciation lasts when the curtain falls. You can be the center of attention and still feel invisible, but you can be deeply appreciated in silence and feel more seen than ever. When you finally stop chasing attention, something amazing happens. You start attracting appreciation, the kind that's quiet, real, and lasting, the kind that doesn't demand your performance, only your presence. Because appreciation isn't about what you do, it's about who you are when the noise fades, and the moment you understand that you'll never need to be noticed again. Distance, it's a strange thing, isn't it? It feels like loss, like something's breaking, like something's slipping away. But in truth, distance is often the only way to see clearly. When you're standing too close to someone or something, your vision blurs. You confuse comfort for connection, routine for loyalty, attention for love. It's only when you step back, when you create that space, that the truth begins to reveal itself. Distance doesn't destroy real bonds, it exposes which ones were real to begin with. There comes a moment in everyone's life when you have to pull back, not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally care enough about yourself. You stop trying to force conversations that go nowhere. You stop showing up where your presence is overlooked. You stop fighting to be seen by people who have already decided to look past you. That step back feels painful at first, like you're losing something, but what you're really doing is regaining perspective. When you're too close to the noise, you can't hear your own thoughts. You're caught up in their world, their emotions, their needs. You start to lose your balance trying to hold everyone else steady. Distance gives you a breath of your own air again. It lets you hear your own heartbeat. The one that's been whispering, you deserve peace too. And once you hear that voice clearly, you realize that not every relationship deserves front row access to your energy. Here's the truth: people who value your presence won't be threatened by your distance. They'll understand it, they'll respect it, they'll bridge it. But the ones who only value what you could do for them, they'll vanish the moment you stop giving. And that's not rejection, that's revelation. Distance doesn't push the right people away, it filters out the ones who were never meant to stay. Sometimes you need to step back to see who steps forward. That silence, that space, that distance. It's not punishment, it's clarity. It shows you the difference between those who truly care and those who were just comfortable, because comfort makes people complacent. It makes them assume you'll always be there no matter what. But when you finally create space, they have to decide, will they reach for you or let you go? That decision tells you everything you need to know. And in that clarity, something beautiful happens. You begin to see yourself differently too. You realize that your worth was never tied to how close you stood to others. You don't need to fill every silence, chase every absence, or fix every distance. You start to understand that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is step away and let life show you who belongs in your circle and who only belonged in your chapter. Distance creates perspective, and perspective creates power. It reminds you that connection without appreciation is just convenience. You don't need to shrink yourself to stay close to people who can't meet you where you are. When you stop forcing proximity, you make space for authenticity. And that's where the real connections begin, not in the noise, not in the chaos, but in the quiet understanding that the ones who are meant to stay will always find their way back. So your energy is sacred, more sacred than most people will ever realize. It's the invisible current that powers your dreams, your relationships, your creativity, your peace. And yet we spend so much of it like it's endless, pouring ourselves into people, situations, and problems that drain us instead of nourish us. We give, we fix, we rescue, we hold it all together until one day we wake up empty. That's the moment you realize your energy was never the problem. It was where you were spending it. Every conversation, every commitment, every emotion, it all costs energy. And if you don't learn to protect it, you'll end up paying for peace you could have preserved. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's survival. It's choosing not to light yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. You can love people deeply and still have boundaries. You can care and still say no. You can show up and still know when it's time to walk away. Because your energy determines the quality of your life. And when you waste it on things that don't feed your soul, you begin to fade. Think about it. How many times have you walked away from a conversation feeling lighter, more alive, more grounded? And how many times have you left one feeling like the life was drained right out of you? That's your inner compass talking. Your body always knows when your energy is being respected or stolen. The problem is, we're so used to ignoring that signal in the name of loyalty or obligation. We call it kindness, but it's really self-neglect, because kindness without boundaries becomes exhaustion, and giving without balance becomes self-erasure. The truth is, your presence is powerful, so powerful that people will start depending on it. They'll lean on your light without realizing how much it takes for you to keep it burning. But you're not a battery for other people's emptiness. You're a human being, and you deserve to be recharged too. Protecting your energy means recognizing when the exchange is no longer equal. When the conversations start to feel one-sided, when your support becomes expected instead of appreciated, when your peace starts to feel compromised, that's your sign to pause. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about being conscious of what you allow in. You have to become intentional about the environments you walk into and the people you let close. Ask yourself, does this space expand me or exhaust me? Does this person add peace or take it away? And if the answer doesn't feel right, you have permission to step back. You don't need to explain your boundaries to those who benefited from your lack of them. Your energy isn't up for negotiation. It's your responsibility to protect it. Because here's what happens when you do. Your silence becomes strength, your peace becomes your priority, and your present becomes more meaningful. People start realizing that being around you is not something to take for granted. It's a privilege. When your energy is grounded, your life begins to attract balance. The ones who respect your space will draw closer in love. The ones who only took from it will quietly fade away. And that's okay, because you can't heal in the same place that keeps hurting you. You can't thrive in an atmosphere that constantly drains you. Protecting your energy doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about yourself too. When you honor your energy, you send a message to the world that your peace is priceless, your time is valuable, and your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. And when you finally understand that truth, you no longer chase validation or attention. You start attracting alignment. You stop fighting for a seat at tables where your energy isn't respected. And you start building your own, surrounded by people who match your peace, not drain it. Because when your energy is protected, your soul finally gets to rest. And that's where your power begins to rise again. Silence. The word itself carries a kind of weight. For most of your life, you've been taught to speak up, to defend yourself, to explain your side, to make sure people understand. But what if silence isn't the absence of power, but the expression of it? What if silence isn't surrender? It's mastery. Because the moment you stop arguing for your worth, you start standing in it. The moment you stop chasing to be heard, you begin to listen not to others, but to yourself. There's a special kind of strength that comes when you realize you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to prove yourself in every conversation. You don't have to make noise just to be seen. Silence doesn't mean you've lost the fight. It means you've decided some battles aren't worth your energy anymore. It's the point where your peace outweighs your pride. And when you reach that place, you move differently, with calm, with confidence, with clarity. People often mistake silence for weakness because they don't understand the discipline it takes to stay quiet when everything inside you wants to shout. It's easy to react. It's easy to defend. But silence requires control. It's choosing not to waste your voice on ears that are closed. It's choosing not to justify your value to people who have already decided not to see it. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. When you finally go silent, you don't disappear. You reclaim yourself. You stop being defined by what others think and start living by what you know. You remember that you don't need to explain why you walked away, why you stopped answering, why you stopped showing up. Silence becomes your explanation. It speaks on your behalf with a power words never could, because people will always feel your silence more than they ever heard your voice. It makes them sit in the echo of what they've lost, and in that quiet, they start to realize the impact of your absence. But here's the beautiful thing. Your silence isn't just for them, it's for you. It's the space where you begin to rebuild. When the noise fades, when the chaos ends, that's when healing begins. In silence, you meet yourself again, not the version shaped by everyone's expectations, but the real you, the grounded, whole, powerful you. That's when you stop needing to be noticed, because you finally notice yourself. And it's in that stillness that your voice becomes stronger, even when you're not speaking. People start to notice a different energy around you, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands respect. Because silence doesn't hide your power, it refines it. It turns it into presence, calm, unshakable, undeniable. So if you find yourself in a season of silence right now, don't rush to fill it. Don't apologize for it. Sit in it. Let it teach you. Let it remind you of what truly matters, because silence isn't the end of your story. It's the reset before your next chapter. It's not punishment, it's peace. And when you finally rise from that quiet, grounded hole and unbothered, the world will notice. But this time, you won't need them to, because your silence will already have said everything that needed to be heard. When silence finally takes your place, something shifts, not just around you, but within you. The people who once overlooked your presence suddenly feel the absence of it. But what they don't realize is that your silence isn't just an empty space. It's a transformation. It's the sound of boundaries being rebuilt, of self-worth being rediscovered, of peace being restored. You stop living in the echo of other people's recognition and start living in the fullness of your own awareness. That's the moment you understand your presence was never the problem. The problem was how easily it was taken for granted. And once you've tasted the freedom that silence brings, you never again crave the noise of validation. The silence you create doesn't just teach others, it teaches you. It shows you how much strength it takes to choose stillness over reaction, distance over desperation, clarity over chaos. You begin to see your own reflection in that quiet space, realizing that your value isn't something you earn by being loud, loyal, or endlessly available. It's something that exists simply because you are. The world has conditioned us to believe that to matter, we must constantly prove ourselves, but silence breaks that illusion. It teaches you to be enough without performance, to be worthy without witnesses, and to be peaceful without permission. And the beauty of this transformation is that silence doesn't harden you, it softens you in the right ways. It removes bitterness and replaces it with understanding. You stop resenting those who failed to see your worth and start thanking them for the clarity their neglect gave you. Because without their blindness, you might have never opened your own eyes. You might have never learned to differentiate between people who truly value your presence and those who merely enjoy your convenience. Silence becomes your reset button, not to erase your past, but to reintroduce you to your power. Once you've learned to stand in that stillness, you carry yourself differently. You stop rushing to fill the gaps in other people's awareness. You stop lowering your standards just to be accepted. Your peace becomes your filter. If something disturbs it, it doesn't deserve you, and that calm, grounded energy, that's what people start to feel even before you speak. They sense that you've been through the fire and return not louder, but clearer. You no longer need to demand respect. Your energy commands it naturally, because silence, when embraced with purpose, transforms from emptiness into authority, the kind that can't be faked or forced. And when that day comes, when you walk into a room no longer needing to be seen or heard to feel valuable, you've won. You've transcended the need for recognition. You've learned that silence isn't the end of your story, it's the quiet before your evolution. So let them notice your absence. Let them hear your silence. Let them realize what they lost. Because the truth is, you no longer need them to understand your worth. You already do. And in that understanding lies the most powerful sound in the world. Not your voice, not your words, but your peace. Thank you, truly. Thank you for sharing this space of reflection, growth, and awakening with me. Words can move us, but it's the silence between them that reminds us who we really are. If this message stirred something in you, hold on to it. Let it guide you the next time you find yourself giving too much, speaking too loudly just to be heard, or forgetting that your presence is already powerful enough. As you walk away from this moment, remember your energy is sacred. Your voice is valuable, and your silence, when chosen with intention, is unstoppable. You owe no one explanations for protecting your peace. You don't have to shout to prove your worth. Just stand tall in your stillness, because that quiet confidence will speak volumes for you. Thank you for listening, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Thank you for allowing these words to meet you where you are. And thank you for daring to grow, to pause, and to rise stronger from your own moments of silence. Until we meet again, keep walking with purpose, keep honoring your peace, and never forget, sometimes the loudest transformation begins in complete quiet. Goodbye for now, and may your silence always speak of strength, not absence.